horror stories about therapists. Now, I don't do much therapy bashing on this channel. I think I did a video about the difference between NLP and CBT as one video. And the reason why I don't do much therapy bashing on this channel is because it doesn't really help. To me, therapy, basic psychotherapy, basic counselling is a lot like martial arts. We espouse systems, and the humans running the therapy try and hide behind a system, but actually what it comes down to is the skill of the individual. This is way more art than science. And the proof of the pudding is in the eating as far as that is concerned, because you'll get some therapists who really have all the training in the world. They know NLP, CBT, hypnotherapy, Gestalt therapy, psychodynamic therapy, and they just suck. They just suck because they got into it for the wrong reasons. Therapy, like teaching, is a vocational thing. You need to feel drawn, you need to feel inspired to do that. If you don't get a dopamine release, if you don't get an endorphin rush from sitting in front of a client, conversing with them, and them going, oh my God, thank you, I've been carrying that for years and you've just cleared it up and I feel so, if that doesn't make you go, it should, like lights up the whole energy system. You go, wow, that's really cool. I just really helped somebody to do something there. You're not going to be very good at it. If you do it for money, you're probably going to suck. That's the truth, just to stop you, because I speak to people all the time who say they're thinking of becoming coaches or thinking of becoming therapists. It's not for everybody, and sometimes it's actually quite draining, it's actually quite tough, so you need to love it for its own sake. So it's a lot like martial arts. So I don't really bash other therapists, but in the last 2 weeks, a lot of people have come to me with horror stories of what therapists have said to them. Not out of malice. I seriously doubt there's people out there rubbing their hands with glee going, how can I fuck up my clients today? But through their unconsciousness, through their lack of skill, through their lack of knowledge, they don't realize how damaging what they're saying is. I have, in terms of styles and systems, tiger claw therapy versus snake style therapy. I really have very little time for what is called non-directive, person-centered cognitive behavioral therapy. I think it's a waste of time. However, I received therapy from a lady called Nicola from the Wirral, who's really good as a counsellor, really good as a coach, but who's gone offline for the time being. And she is a master of non-directive, person-centered cognitive behavioral therapy and teaches it. That's her job, is she trains therapists. She was excellent. She was really, really good. She was so good that in my head, when I was doing the therapy with her, I'm like, I think this woman could be a psychic, and she's actually doing psychic work with me, but she just calls it therapy. Or as Carla McLaren would have it, she's an empath who's using a lot of intuition. She was very, very, very good. And she hated NLP. She hated hypnosis because NLP and hypnosis are seen as kind of dirty and exploitative and kind of for used car salesmen to sell people things they don't really want. And I dig that, I get it, I do get it, I get the suspicion. My distrust of NLP and hypnotherapy comes from my personal experience of working with NLP practitioners and hypnotherapists, and there's a personality type that gets drawn to it, and it's not that great. But this isn't really a video about kicking NLP or kicking hypnotherapy, because the fact is, the way I do NLP, and the way somebody like Connie Ray Andreas does NLP, is it becomes their own thing. In fact, it becomes just a useful word. Like, some of the concepts from NLP I know are absolute bullshit. Eye accessing cues has never withstood the tests of scientific rigor, not even once. And I think eye accessing cues as a concept has been tested several times. And the reason it didn't withstand the testing of scientific rigor is because it's a bullshit concept. It's just, you can, like, for me, I read that when I was 18 and I was like, I know that's a lie. And I could prove it immediately. I didn't need to set up an expensive scientific experiment. You can make people look pretty much where you want them to look. People will look away from you when they think about certain things and they talk about certain things because it's rude to keep staring at you. This is one of the reasons why I struggle in a kind of what do they call it, an Asperger's spectrum sort of way when I meet people, because I find it very difficult to take on new information about people while I'm looking at them. So what I want to do when I meet you and I shake your hand and you say, hello, my name is Mary, and I shake your hand and I go, hello, Mary, what I want to do is look away from you and go, her name is Mary, and you can remember that by blah, 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 and then form a link. But that would be really rude. If every time, oh, your name is Mary, her name is Mary, blah, 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 and I need to form a link in my head. And what actually happens is I'm so externally focused on looking at the person, I remember nobody's names. I can't remember anybody's fucking names because I'm looking at them and thinking about something else as they give me their name. So where people's eyes go is much more to do with social convention and convenience and what they happen to be thinking about. The only thing that I think worked in terms of eye accessing cues as a part of NLP is when people are talking to themselves, they tend to draw their eyes down and towards their own shoulders as though like talking to the angel or the devil on the shoulder. What was that guy's name? Fuck, what was the name of that film? Why are my eyes doing this? Because you're kind of talking to yourself. And if they look down, they're probably accessing their feelings, generally. But you can't say, visual remembered, visual created, which is the model of NLP as it presents itself. So, I've got a few horror stories this week, and I want you guys, if you wouldn't mind, just concisely sharing some horror stories you've had from therapy, because when I say I do coaching with people and counselling with people, some people's reactions are like, my God, it's a fucking waste of time. I had a therapist who told me blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, wow, that sounds really fucked up, dude. Sorry to hear that. That's not what you should do with somebody. I met a group recently who were NLP master trainers, and the guy told me a story of what he was telling me proudly, this story of an amazing therapeutic success that he'd experienced. He said, we had, and this is in a group setting by the way, he said, we had a client, and in a group therapy workshop, this client revealed that she had been sexually abused as a child. So I did timeline therapy with her. This is what this guy's telling me, and I'm going, okay, timeline therapy for sexual abuse, this is already sounding a bit dangerous. Puts her into a trance, a light level of hypnotic trance, whilst people are watching, by the way. So there's, just bear in mind, there's a social context to this, there's an element of spectacle to it. Has her go back along her timeline, back to the time when she was sexually abused, and to imagine the sexual abuse in a symbolized format. At this point, you might be sat there going, what? Why? As I was. Why? And she chose the symbol of black horses, and this is as he describes it. She was vividly remembering the sexual abuse from her childhood, but imagining it as being chased by 6 black horses. And I was like, okay, this sounds really fucking unhelpful. And she was very upset. She was proud of this. She was so upset, so emotional. She was screaming and crying. And I was like, okay, so now she's having a humiliating, extremely personal experience in front of a crowd of strangers, some of whom are analysing her like she's an interesting fucking animal. So what we did is we entered her hypnotic fantasy and we offered her a rope that she could climb up to escape the horses. So I was like, hang on so not only did you put her in trance to go back and remember the traumatic events from her childhood, which you asked her to remember in a symbolic format, you didn't break the fantasy when she started to become upset and bring her back to reality. You entered it and encouraged it by offering her a rope. And his finale of this story of how great he is as a therapist is, and she climbed up the rope and she felt better. And I was like, what if the rope broke? It's not a real fucking rope. So what if the rope in her what would you do then? Offer her a ladder and then the ladder breaks, and then what do you do? Offer her a hook and then what is this? What is this strange, fetishized, cult-like adult role play you're engaging in? The human mind, interfered with, does not represent memories symbolically. Only people who have been through a lot of therapy, imbibed a lot of psychobabble, and imbibed a lot of therapeutic fucking head wankery and nonsense would go, yes, I remember my childhood trauma as, being chased by black horses. And I would always say, no, you've watched too much TV. You're not remembering it. Like, that's not how the brain works. Let's deal with the reality. What is this obsession in therapy of making it a traumatic experience? I watched again the other day Adam Curtis's documentary, The Century of the Self, particularly the episode, which I think is number 3, called There is a Policeman Inside of Our Heads and He Must Be Destroyed. And he went through all the different styles of therapy that had kind of developed after Freud, and how they were actually kind of a reflection of the self-obsession and the capitalist consumer backdrop, template in which they were formed. And I watch people doing a style of therapy called EST, and I want the therapist, well, I'd fucking love to know what this twat's qualifications were, is pushing somebody against the wall and saying, push the wall. If you don't push the wall harder, I'll push you. And this guy's pushing a wall until he's physically exhausted. And I know how EST works because I went to a similar thing that's based on EST called the Landmark Forum, and I lasted 1 hour in there, and then they threw me out. And the reason why they threw me out is they said, you may not go on toilet breaks, and you may not go and drink or eat food without asking us. And I said, why? Why would you set that up? Why is that a framework? I'm a fucking grown man. If I'm going to go to the toilet, which one of you is going to stop me? How are you going to fucking stop me? Oh, don't get aggressive. Of course I'm getting aggressive. You're telling me that as a grown man, I have to ask you like a child to... No, I'm not doing that. One very easy trick to play if you're forming a cult is to trauma bond. So if you have an immensely traumatic experience whilst doing therapy with me, you'll, even if it's awful and it hurts you, you'll associate intense emotion to the experience of being with me. And I will become a powerful father-like God in your mind and in your emotional map. That's a very cheap, very exploitative, very fucking rapey way of doing therapy. And if anybody pushes you or bullies you or tries to dehumanize you in therapy, fucking headbutt them and then run away, because it's not part of any therapeutic process that can help you. The guy who created EST, this horrible prick, was sat there saying, we're peeling away the layers of the onion down to the core. And I was like, that's fucking nonsense. Human beings aren't onions. You don't have layers. You know who first actually said that? That's not an original thought. That thought comes from Darren Brown. Darren Brown wrote a really good book called A Trick of the Mind. Very well written, very funny, very entertaining, and you will learn a lot about applied psychology just by reading this book, and you'll be learning as you laugh. It's really good. His assessment of NLP, pretty much exactly the same as mine. It's just the way it's run in London with Mr. McKenna and Mr. Bandler is basically as a money-making machine. That's not to say they're useless, they're not. They're both actually really good at what they do. Amazing. I mean, Bandler, I don't think it's unjustified to say that he is a genius, but he is also clearly fucking mental himself. McKenna, Paul McKenna, excellent hypnotherapist, very, very good. But the NLP seminars that you go on in some hotel conference room and you all pay £2,500 and then you all become NLP practitioners with no testing at the end of it, very dodgy. But yeah, this idea of making people not go to the toilet, and oh, by the way, the Landmark Forum and the EST Forum, when you go on those courses, you're looking at doing 12, 13, 14-hour sessions. And what you're doing is what they encourage you to do is expose your secrets. Tell the group things you've never told anybody in your life. It's pure trauma bonding. You can't go to the toilet until we tell you to. That's trauma bonding. After 12 hours of not eating properly and not going for piss when you need to, you will be stressed and you will be tired. And this peeling back the layers of the onion to get to the core, basically all that means is we've taken our unqualified bullying thugs who are just smashing through your reality, tramping through your mind with their dirty boots to get you to cry. See, and that would be, your mind then goes, oh, I accept their reality tunnel, this is me at my core. No, that's you tired. That's you pissed off. That's you basically traumatized. You're now trauma bonded to that pseudo-religious cult. Fuck these guys. Another horror story, and then I'll wrap this up. Somebody, 3 psychology students have asked me this recently. Have you ever taken the Myers-Briggs, the MBTI? Myers-Briggs, what is it? The personality test that was developed by Meyer and Briggs called the MBTI, which is based on Jungian concepts, which I maintain Jung would have been horrified by. The idea of rubber stamping somebody as this is you, this is who you are, is nonsensical. And I don't think Jung would have gone for it. I don't think he would have gone for industrializing, which is what the MBTI was for. It was created in World War II, and it's to industrialize and formalize a machine-like process to let us know who people are. But it doesn't work. It doesn't work. It doesn't work any better than astrology does. This has been split test with astrology. We go, oh, you're a Piscean, that means we're going to do... As a predictor of behavior, it is only as useful as astrology. And when they retest people 3 weeks after... So say we do a test with you today, and it says you're a highly sensitive introvert, blah, 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 blah. And then in 3 weeks' time, we test you again. 50% of the time, you'll get a completely different reading. That's science, guys. You can't deny that. That is fucking scientific research. It doesn't hold up. It's bullshit. It might give you an indicator in a very general sense, but so what? What's it for? Businesses still keep using it, but one of the assessments of it was maybe they use it because it's a pleasant exercise in self-introspection and part of a group bonding task. It really doesn't. Nobody uses it as an indicator of performance because it's fucking useless as an indicator of performance. Another girl here in Kuala Lumpur, a woman who runs a separate group that I spoke at, asked me if I wanted to get her group and my group joined together to do personality tests, and I said no. I don't believe in personality testing people. I don't think a piece of fucking paper can tell you what you need to know about yourself. Jesus Christ, you're not a machine. you're not a happiness machine, as Adam Curtis would say. We should not submit to this simplistic reduction. You might be introverted now. You might display patterns of introversion now, but there is no genetic determinism that says you're an introverted person. It's environmental. So if you learn to be introverted, you can learn to be extroverted. I know, because I did. My natural inclination, because of the environment I grew up in, was to withdraw from reality into books, was to withdraw from reality into fantasy. And I came to believe in my teenage years, because of the books I was reading, because of consuming a lot of William Burroughs and Robert Anton Wilson and Aleister Crowley and people like that I could think my way out of the problems that I had in my environment. So that actually created a very sensitive, introverted, creative personality. I wasn't born that way. There's no genetic coding for that. The idea is superstitious. It's not scientific, because I know people are attached to these ideas about themselves. I'm not trying to take anything from you. If you feel that way and it helps you, stick with it. Because that map that makes you feel okay about who you are is working for you now. But one day, if we were doing personal coaching, one day I would ask you to let it go. One day, when you're ready, I would say further along the line, when you're stronger, when you feel more right, I would say you really, that's like Dumbo with the magic feather. You don't need that magic feather, you can fly just fine without that little piece of paper. You can fly, it's okay. So the MBTI, my last story. When I was 18, I was at Aston University. That's where I studied psychology, at Aston. And I was walking through the city centre, and some little woman, this little thing with a bowl, haircut and a clipboard and a cigarette hanging out of her mouth, says to me, do you want to do a psychology test? Me, naive, I'm actually studying psychology. I would love to do a psychology test and find out about myself, yes. So she takes me upstairs, and I do the MBTI. And at the end of the test, she says, well, okay, we're gonna, I was being tested with a bunch of other people on other tables, everybody's very quiet, there's a weird atmosphere in there. I'm looking around and I'm like, Scientology. Isn't that... My dad was into L. Ron Hubbard. We had L. Ron Hubbard books around the house. I thought it was a load of bollocks. He had personality tests that would ask you things like, when was the last time you made your enemy scream? And I'm like, I remember reading that when I was 15 going, is this real? is that a joke question? That was one of L. Ron Hubbard's personality test questions. When was the last time you made an enemy scream? That's not on the MBTI, don't get confused. L. Ron Hubbard had his own personality test. L. Ron Hubbard created Scientology. Modern Scientology uses the MBTI. So anyway, they take away my results. And I studied the MBTI because I was a first year psychology grad. And they come back and they say, well, you're depressed and you need help. And we have worked out the perfect thing for you would be our Scientology level 1 intro course, blah, blah, blah. It'll cost you £100. And I was like, now, bearing in mind, I wasn't a normal 18-year-old. I'd done face-to-face sales, doing quite aggressive selling scenarios like timeshare, phone sales, selling advertising space. So I was a mouthy kid, and I knew when I was being pitched to, because this room felt like the room where people were pressured into signing up for timeshare that I'd seen previously when I was living in Portugal. And I was like, I feel the energy in this room. I know what's going on in here. This is a hard sell. And they're now hard selling me on their product. And I was like, so you're telling me that that psychology test tested me for depression? Well, no, it doesn't test you for depression, but we've assessed from your answers that you are depressed and that the perfect thing would be this course. I was like, how many courses do you offer? Well, at your level 1. So I'm like, so hang on a second. Whatever I answered on the fucking test then, you'd be telling me I needed that course. Don't get aggressive. That's what they said. This is what they always fucking do. Don't get aggressive. Don't raise your voice, sir. And I'm like, well, I'm raising my fucking voice because you guys are funneling everybody in this room into a sales process on the notion that they're crazy, on the notion that there's something wrong with them. This is a fucking hard sell. I remember standing up at the desk going, this is a fucking hard sell and it's not going to work. They were like, right, get out. Just get out. Scientologists threw me out. But they were using the MBTI. That's why I don't trust these personality tests. They can be misused. I'm sure some of them were written with the best of intentions, but it's too easy to misuse them, and they're based on a false concept, which is that your personality has layers of an onion. No, it fucking doesn't. That you were born a certain way. You were born an introvert. You were born an extrovert. It's bullshit. This is not science. This is fucking voodoo hoodoo. This is superstition. There's not one shred of scientific evidence that supports the idea of any of your personality being rooted in genetics. Not one conclusive piece of scientific evidence. Oh, there are scientists out there who'll jump up and down being paid by pharmaceutical companies who'll tell you I'm absolutely wrong and I'm lying. Ask them for the conclusive scientific evidence that says that anything fucking wrong with you is genetic. It's bollocks. It's absolute bollocks. None of your mental health issues are provable as genetic. And if they're not genetic, that means what? It means they're learned. Now in psychology, the word learned means something than when the normal layperson uses it. It means that your environment has taught you that as a response. It's not like, oh, I learned a skill and now I'm depressed. But it might not hurt you to think in terms of the things that are hurting you as skills. A great question from NLP. NLP is not a perfect system. I think that's established. But one of the great questions from NLP is when somebody says, I'm depressed, you say, how do you do that? Not why are you depressed? Why should I take you into the backstory? And then you're basically going to BS me. You're going to give me your belief system behind why you're depressed. And you will be wrong. That's not me being a dick and saying, you don't know what your problem is. I don't know. If you sit there and say to me, let's look at the traumas in your life, what upset you? I had a narrative running in my head that the thing that I was heartbroken over was my last relationship. I was so heartbroken over it and I couldn't get over it. And then when I expanded it and looked at it and sort of turned it around and tried to see it in 3D, I was like, yeah, I was heartbroken, but it wasn't with one person. There was a whole system there, a whole belief system, a whole way of looking at reality that fell apart. That one person, she was just the first domino. Then all the other fucking dominoes fell and everything went, that's some heartache right there. To become heartbroken with humanity, that's a different thing. A lot of you people here on this channel, you're thinking, oh, that traumatic event, that business venture, that creative career, that music career that fell flat, that's what hurts me. It's not. The deep-seated, generalized pain is because the cracks have gone right the way through the entire map of reality. So that can't be just one event, can it? It has to be broader than that. So anyway, we started out talking about therapeutic horror stories. I'd love to hear yours. Somebody the other day told me something that just had me literally with my jaw on the floor. I'm coaching a guy. A lot of people I'm coaching, they also have therapy. They're seeing me as a coach, and then they're doing therapy as well. And this guy, I'm teaching him to assert his boundaries in terms of not taking on responsibilities. He's adopted the persona of father to everybody. Be responsible, be an adult. I need to prove I'm a good person. I need to prove to the external world I'm a good person. Take that responsibility, And of course he accrues a load of fucking lazy parasites around him who are like, yeah, this fucking nice guy, he's going to do all this for me. Sound, I don't have to do fuck all, I can be lazy. And I was saying to him, look dude, no, stop. You need to assert these boundaries. And we did like a little hypnosis track, assert the boundaries, learn to enjoy saying, that's not my problem, that's not my problem, that's not my problem, that's your responsibility, you're an adult, I'm an adult, it's your responsibility, not mine. It's a hard thing for people with porous ego boundaries, like most of you are attracted to these videos and they're here. It's a fucking hard thing to do, but my God, it's powerful. The power to say, your problem, not my problem. It's your problem, not my problem. And it's difficult and it's intrinsic, and that muscle is atrophied and it's weak, and I strengthen it with people. This guy, poor guy, goes to his therapist and says, I'm learning to say to my ex-wife, that's not my problem. So when my ex-wife tries to place her problems on me, I have now a boundary, and I assert that boundary to say, that's not my problem. And she says to him, yeah, okay, well, I'm not sure I agree with you there, so let's just reframe it so that what we're saying is, it's kind of my problem, or it's partly my problem. And he said that to me, and I was like, what? What? Why would you say that? Why would a therapist, in total conscious awareness, form the sentence structure, no, I need to get my client to understand that other people's problems are his problems? Why would you do that? I would love to just run into the room at that point, get hold of her, grab her by the cheeks and say, why would you say that? Why? What are you thinking right now? What's the thought process that makes you think, oh, I need to make my client feel worse. I need to make my client feel like the problems out there are his problems. Are you working for are you a shill? Are you trying to traumatize this guy? Another thing that wasn't told to me, but I suspect has happened, was with somebody else I've been in contact with, and I've seen it come up on the channel as well, in comments on the channel. There's therapists telling their clients that their assessment of the world are just projections. People lack empathy. That's just a projection. Oh, thank you, so it's my fault. So you say, okay, I'm going to now, as a grown-up individual, as an adult, assert my perception of reality. There is a lack of empathy out here. There is a fucking lack of compassion. And then the therapist comes along and says, there isn't. The world is fine. It's fine out here, son. I mean, are you the devil? Why would you do that? It's fine out here. The problem is in you. You're creating a projection. You're doing that crazy thing that crazy people do. You're just hallucinating. This person was really cruel to me. They just kicked me in the face. They didn't. Not really. You kind of asked for it. What is this? Your sticky little fingers just rummaging around inside of somebody's head, pulling things apart, making a fucking mess. Why would you say that to somebody? Why would you take a victim and subtly, in a nice voice, well, let's just take what you said and reframe it. Let's just imagine, maybe the world isn't a cruel, but maybe those people are all fine and it's all inside your head. Ooh, you creepy motherfucker. That's horrible. That's a horrible thing to do. Why would you do that? So I want to hear some more horror stories. I think it's a good thing for people to just get it out there so they can see that other people have been told weird stuff by therapists as well. It's not always because the therapist is evil or the devil. In fact, I'm sure it's very rarely that. I think it's that we all fall prey to our own cultural templates. We all fall prey to our own ego projections. But to encourage somebody to take on somebody else's problems as though they were their own, there is no justification for that. To tell somebody that the abuse that they experienced at somebody else's hands is their fault is madness. It's absolute insanity. I can't think of a more abusive double bind that you would put somebody in. Somebody gets the shit beaten out of them. Somebody gets sexually assaulted and they come to me and I start saying, well, yes, it was a bad thing, but let's talk about how you made that happen. It's not going to help. It's not going to help the client move forward. It's not going to be like, this person abused me, and you say to them, did they really abuse you? Or maybe maybe you're just putting a frame around it that it's abuse. Maybe they were just trying to help you. That's really going to fuck the person up because you're encouraging them to redouble bind themselves into trauma and to not trust their own perceptions of reality. That's sick, man. That's really fucking sick. You shouldn't do that to people. Okay, that's enough on that subject. Hope you enjoyed that video. Please do feel free to share your fucking stories and that, and I will speak to you again soon, no doubt. Thank you.